And we are live. JWC live stream. Special episode today. Thanks for joining us. Life is busy, so we had a couple people who can't make it. It's normally story autopsy with Ricky and Tom, but Tom's going through some stuff. So today instead, we'll have a little bit of a shorter show. Won't go as planned, but we have backups for such things. It's a rare moment. Normally I'm host and I let people read their stuff, and we get some really good reads. Amber Danson's stuff is amazing. And Tom, I mean, forget it. Tom's stuff is fantastic. So today I'm going to read from my novella that I put out through JWC. It's called Babbletron, After the Fire. It's a dystopian cyberpunk book. I'll read the first chapter, and that'll probably be it. So we'll get right to the read. Chapter 1, A Bad Memory. What his real name was, no one could say, but everyone who was on good terms with him called him Big Daddy, especially the ladies. Big Daddy was not without his problems, his bad habits, and a reputation that rivaled any of the big city gangsters. After the nanobombs cooked the East Coast black 100 years ago, the world had been full of problems, though no one, though no one had any time to complain about it. If you wanted to eat, breed, congregate, or even move during the daylight hours, you needed numbers. Safety was not an issue, because safety was a lie. No guarantees existed for childhood words like safety, words used to get mutant children to sleep at night while security drones haunted the brutalized landscape. Big Daddy and his screw crew were specialists at dealing with yesterday's garbage, the kind that flew around or lurked under the crumbling infrastructure where highways met byways. In such desolate places, his crew flourished like professional hitmen, decked out in military hardware scrounged up from lockers and caches. Big Daddy wore black from head to heel, rocked a hooded trench coat, big bad head-crushing boots, and a flak vest he found several years back. His hair was raven, his flesh tone pale as ghost vapor, with charcoal black optical cavities. In truth, he had no eyes, having had them removed after he witnessed the nanobomb detonate under a holographic sky. The whole thing bright as Almighty God and overly cancerous to the retinas. On his back, he slung a shotgun next to a 6-foot-long ninja blade he had forged by a rigger in Bricktown who had fire hot enough for titanium work. At his sides were holstered twin 50 cal pistols with bayonets. And these had silencers which muffled but did not kill the thunder his triggers summoned. BD rode a nuke-powered motorcycle with a charge of 50 years, made tough with run flats and a 3-part unseizable motor. He sped through a secure zone toward his fellows, realizing through his cybernetic modem that he was already late for the job. Big Daddy's bike pulled into the yard just as they were closing the gate. The guards shaking their heads as if he would never learn. Big Daddy swore to himself that he never would. Never show up when expected, the voice of his brother had always reminded him. Because if you did, then they always knew where and when to get you. Not that he had any foes here, but then again, you never know. BD dismounted and found himself kissing one of the armored searchers, presenting him and the others with a sort of conflict of interests. Pushed her off to keep from wanting more, and the text she sent him tickered past his cyborg vision like sexual stock futures, promising a robust return. Then Glenn and Myra strolled up, the former speaking under the sound, pardon me, of a revving turbine, which had just gotten put back together. Big Daddy, said Glenn, to what do we owe the pleasure of your visit? Edie threw it back in his face.
Can it, Glenn? My head is pounding from that junk you sold me last night. I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the money and a chance to decrease the surplus population of the earth. Let's not hem and haw over any details.
Myra nodded with a smirk and said, this way, Big Daddy. We have the kind of work you're going to love. Glenn and Myra led BD into a tent where George, Meadow, and Owens waited, gathered around a hollow emitter set to infrared light. Big Daddy didn't need any augmentation because of his custom optics, but others donned goggles so as not to be left out of the planning stage. Glenn stood before the projection and pointed here and there as he spoke, trying to set up the half-assed data into some kind of game plan. This didn't bode well. Okay, so we got word that a power signature flashed on and off over the last 12 hours. It's a kind of flicker we have to check out. It promises some parts we desperately need and suggests that they might still be functional. However, the tent felt the plunge of that, however, like a knife in the gut. This factory or hub or automatic vehicle is in the dead zone. So anyone not playing with a full deck tonight should sit this one out. There's likely to be bad bloods, maybe even jelly dolls walking around out there. And we won't be the only ones to notice that flicker. The Blips probably brought every scumbag from here to the bay into contest for its prize. Figure it out. We leave in 10 minutes. Everyone gathered voted to go. Before the meeting was even done, they were filing out into the rain. Glenn was yammering about how he wasn't finished, but even Myra abandoned him to join the eager flock. They surrounded Big Daddy, listening closely as Thunder attempted to drown out his basso voice.
All right, kids. Whoever thinks this is just some kind of smash and grab better think again. It ain't. It sounds like a caper I pulled about 5 years back. And if it's half as ugly as that one was, then we better bring all the toys and hostility out of hell.
Meadow spoke up, her squeaky voice sounding like squealing tires on a cloverleaf drift. Oh man, it's like that one? Like the one with the androids and the plasma thrower? I always wanted to get into synthetic soldiers. On the street, they count as double. George laughed to emphasize how stupid she sounded, saying, synthetic soldiers get you killed. There are more like 3 or 4 people. Without the right hardware, they don't go down. What makes you think that it won't be you on the street? Owens put in his 2 bits, though not with any exuberance. We got synth rounds, enough for all, so that ain't the issue. The issue is that the flicker could be a trap. Maybe there are tongue slugs, those cannibals who emerge from the sewers to munch on sentient flesh. That's what got my sister. She thought she was slick too. Now she's a turd on the asphalt. That sobered them up a bit, and so Big Daddy had his chance to reclaim the bravado.
Listen, Myra and Glenn will take the dropship in.
Edie stopped in front of his bike and pointed to George and Owens.
You two will ride in the Rhino.
Then he turned to Meadow and said,
I need you to take the other bike and ride with me, because if we need to draw the jelly dolls out, that'll be the best way to do it. They run fast, so don't be afraid to punch it. We will likely have to get our hands dirty on this one, so no bellyache.
They nodded to him as the game plan came together and ammo got passed out. After a high-speed hour on roads and ramps leading into the industrial dead zone, Big Daddy heard gunfire. Above them, the gunship was exchanging shots with something on the ground. The next thing he knew, Big Daddy was sliding down the street on his side, sparks flying from his bike and cybernetic hand. He tried to prevent road rash, but felt a bite of the street break skin. BD got to his feet. and saw what was left of the gunship plummeting out of the sky, the whole thing completely involved in fire. There was no callback from Mira or Glenn. Not long after this, Meadow circled back on her bike. She wore a look of horror, realizing what happened and how deep they were in it. The Rhino's machine gun turrets could be heard butting off into the distance, obviously running from something, leaving Meadow and Big Daddy to fend for themselves. Then came an army of synthetic jelly dolls, the militant androids who always sought to regulate the territory they haunted. BD turned to Meadow and shouted, "Punch it!" Then he remounted his bike and revved, burning rubber on his way out of there. Meadow did her best to follow, and they only just made it past the swarming mass of naked androids with glowing optics who sought to dismember them with hydraulic force. Big Daddy drew his blade and swung its lengthy edge one-handed, cutting a jelly doll's head off at the neck. They blew by them as more and more leapt from behind derelict structures, but the clicking of metallized feet sounded like a drum machine just behind them. In his rearview hologram, BD beheld a growing legion of synthetic killers, enough where he knew they could not stop or drop. They'd be as good as dead if they did. Before long, they showed up at the old Skyway Bridge, and that was when Meadow hit the skids. He heard her scream as she rolled, only just barely avoiding patches of sharp debris that cluttered the right-of-way. Big Daddy replaced his blade back onto his magnetic harness and smoothly drew a pistol. He spun the bike and revved it back up to full speed, leaving rubber enough to stain the grime as he did so. Big Daddy emptied the pistol, cutting down a dozen jelly dolls with auto-targeted precision. Before she knew what happened, he had Meadow up and onto his bike, feeling her shaky arms reach for him as he spun around and revved to resume their escape. That was when he felt her jerk back, heard her scream bloody murder, the sound of it turning wet almost at once. Big Daddy kept his balance and spun while reaching, seeking to grab at Meadow, but she came apart in the android's soulless clutch. His metal hand closed, came up with nothing but a cluster of necklaces that she wore for good luck. Meadow was shredded into bloody gore. The resulting displacement of weight caused Big Daddy to swerve and lose control of the faltering bike. He left the bike to smash against the bridge's guardrail, feeling the open air greet him, welcoming this terrible alternative to being dismembered. About halfway down, the bike exploded, the resulting dirty detonation likely knocking all the jelly dolls off of their feet. Big Daddy woke up on the filthy riverbank, his body sodden with contaminated scum and undrinkable river water. The smell of burning vinyl and fallout was smothering as he brought a scraped up hand before his optical sockets. In the metal clutch, there lay a single heart-shaped locket, the one and only thing left of Meadow other than a bunch of irradiated blood and guts. BD pressed the tiny switch that sprung the locket open, looking at an image of Meadow and her sister, Lilac. He got to his feet, swayed, checking up and down for any sign of jelly dolls. The coast was clear. Big Daddy sought shelter in a burned-out warehouse in order to wait for nightfall. He knew the only way he would make it back to camp was by the cover of night. All that day and into the evening, he opened and closed the heart-shaped locket, looking at the ghosted sisters who would never be anything again but a bad memory. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed. That was chapter 1 of Babbletron, After the Fire. That's the cover you see on my backgrounds. Every time we have a meeting, we usually have a full crew. We talk about topics, and then I don't read, but not everyone can always make it. So from now on, every time I have some absentees or whatever, I'll just read a chapter. and shows will be a little shorter. This book, Babbletron, was really fun to write. Come over to JWC, Joe's Writers Club.com, joeswriters.club. Sign up for our writers community. We have meetings on Tuesday nights, Eastern time, 7 to 9 p.m. You come bring your manuscripts, we'll do some reads, check out our stuff. JWC also has workshops for SEO writing. Check them out. Our YouTube channel is growing, but please do head over to there, watch this, like and subscribe. And thanks for checking us out. Come and join us. Joe's Writers Club is a great place to be a writer. Thanks a lot for listening. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you next week. Take care.